There we go. So we've got our barrow of compost there, and we're starting to introduce the compost into the hole. I'm using a fork now to break open. Oh, there's a bit of a stone there. That's all right. And let's see if we can get that stone out there. Right, step 2 for planting some fruit trees that we've had delivered here at the school. Out around the edges of the school field here, you can see that actually there's a fruit tree there. That's a pear tree that you can see just in front that I'm pointing to here. And I think from recollection that was like a compost pear. What we have here is a conference pear, and as we mentioned on our first video, these are kind of 1-year-old saplings. This is the root stock here that was grown in the ground for a year and then cut off, and they grafted on the piece of conference pear which has grown up through last summer. And it looks to me like they've cut the top there. You can see it there, which will encourage some nice lateral side shoots, which is what we want to get a nice bushy head like that. It's good practice to have a mixture of different varieties rather than just having all conference or all commis. But you know, it's recognised that often you'll get better pollination if you have 2 different varieties, maybe 3 different varieties of fruit trees, particularly important on apples and pears where they're not very good at pollinating themselves. Conference is rumoured will give you a degree of self-pollination, but you'll get better pollination, better fruiting therefore if you've got different varieties of fruit trees within a reasonable, if you think about a bee, maybe it will fly 50-60 meters, maybe more, but from college days I seem to recall they said 50-60 yards would be kind of maximum spacing to get optimum pollination. In this case we're going much closer than that, so we hopefully we'll get some good pollination and some good fruit. So we've got a good root, we've got a good stem. Now we need to dig a good hole. But the first step here is I've made a bit of a crisscross in the grass, made a cross shape there, and slid my spade underneath. Don't forget those sound effects, very important, just to cut the grass. And then we can flip that over. What am I going to do that with all 4 segments just now, so that we create a nice kind of square of soil to plant into, and the turf that with kind of turning over the grass will rot down and provide us with a wider area of kind of clear ground, and we can get our tree in. So forgive me, I find it very hard to dig and to talk and to film at the same time, so I'm going to get on and do the hard work and catch up with you in a moment. Okay, so I've cleared a bit of the grass out the way, kind of flipped over the grass and started to dig the soil over. It's really good actually. I can see, even though it's not as dark as I'd like, this soil, there's plenty of worms in there. Good worm activity, that's a good sign. And in terms of the width of the hole, you can see that it's actually much wider than it needs to be. You can see the width of the roots there. That's in theory all we need to make space for, but I want to make sure that we've got plenty of soft soil, and we're going to incorporate some compost, some of our own homemade compost into there as well, so that as the roots start to grow out, they get a really good start in year 1 and year 2. Right, so sound effects. Oh, there we go. Actually, this looks like it might have a bit of clay in there, and I always remember the first time I ever did some gardening, some paid for gardening work. I was only about 15, 16, and the chap there who had clay soil said that clay soil might give you backache, but a sandy soil will give you heartache. And what he meant was that clay soil can be hard work, but if you work with it, you can get really good results. Whereas a sandy soil, it can be tricky because a lot of the goodness and the water drains out very quickly. The clay soil will cling on to nutrients and water, which will help our fruit trees to thrive. So I'm going to do a bit more work and break open those kludges of soil, get out any stones, so we've got a nice soft, receptive bed of soil. There's a stone in there. There we go. We're getting a bit of progress here. Finding yet more worms, but also finding a few of these. That looks like dandelion root to me. So we'll just throw them over there towards the hedge. I quite like dandelions. You know, the bees love them. And apparently you can eat dandelions. I never tried it myself. Quite nice in a salad, but as I say, I've never tried it, so I'm not recommending. So now I'm going to kind of, now that I've crumbled up this soil, loosened up the soil, I'm going to start to work on a central hole, and then we can get some compost into there. Okay, so this is our little composting area at the school. And this pile here is quite fresh. That's last summer's, or spring and summer and autumn's leaves and grass cuttings and weeds, bits and pieces of dead plants and so on, which we've piled up there. That's still quite rich and still decomposing to some measure. This is from the year before, which is lovely and soft and crumbly and just perfect. Oh, look at that. Perfect for mixing in around the hole, so that as the roots come out, they'll make their way in. There we go. So we've got our barrel of compost there, and we're starting to introduce the compost into the hole. I'm using a fork now to break open. Oh, there's a bit of a stone there. That's all right. And let's see if we can get that stone out of there. Make their way into some nice compost that we'll mix with the soil. This stuff here, I may well put a layer of that on top because it's still quite fresh and might be a bit high in nutrients, a bit rough if you like. Rather than putting that near the roots, when I've put all the soil back around the top of the roots, I might put a little bit of a mulch on top of the soil of this kind of slightly rougher compost, and as that decomposes, it will release nutrients into the ground more gradually, and by having that as a kind of a mulch, a little kind of layer on top of the soil, that'll keep some of the weeds at bay around the base of the tree to give it a good head start. So there we go. We're going to get some of this well-rotted compost first. There we go. So we've got our barrel of compost there, and we're starting to introduce the compost into the hole. I'm using a fork now to break open. Oh, there's a bit of a stone there. That's all right. And let's see if we can get that stone out of there. Oh, he's coming now. It's very rare that I dig a hole without finding some sort of obstruction. Lower down. Just a talent that I have. There we go. So we're using this this fork to break open the soil beneath the hole and get a bit of that compost worked in there. That's good. So now we need to get some more. Some more compost in there. This is lovely stuff. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So there will be some nutrients in here, but it's as much for the kind of the structure of this compost that I'm introducing there. It kind of opens up the ground and holds in the moisture, encourages the worms. It'll hold on to any nutrients that we introduce there. It just, when you mix compost with the surrounding soil, you end up with a really good blend of receptive soil and compost that will be just perfect for this tree. That looks good to me. Okay, so let's get this tree in. Right, well, as soon as I started working the fork into the bottom of the hole, I found yet more stones. They're better off out and out of the way so that the roots have got a good run. So we've opened up the bottom of the hole, loosened it up so that the roots can make their way down into the subsoil and anchor the tree there and give it the support that it needs. We've worked in the compost around the edges, and we've left ourselves with a hole that's just really the right size, so that the roots will bed in there nicely, and then the soil level will come up to about here where you can see my fingers. We don't want to be burying the graft. We're going to stay below the graft mark there, so that's where the soil level should be if my cunning plan works out. Let's have a look. So just going to gently introduce the soil and compost mix back into the hole, just using the fork to work gently to kind of prod the soil around the roots there. There we are. Oh, I can see some more worms there. That's a good sign. Okay, so we've got our first little layer of soil in there. Now I'm just going to give it a very gentle, very gentle press down. I'm not pressing down hard. I'm just settling that soil around the roots there so that the tree can stand up on its own, and I can concentrate on getting the rest of the soil around there now. Let's do it. There we are. So we've got that composty soil mixed in, and then we've got some of the less composty soil just across the top, and just give that a gentle press with our boots. Just, yeah, doesn't need very much firming down at all. You don't want to press too hard on the roots because they need some air around them. We don't want to be squashing them. Just trying to get that more or less upright. That's great. Okay, so now I'm going to put a bit more of a layer of compost on the top. That compost will kind of wash down or be taken down by the worms to fill any gaps there, and then I'm going to put finally on top of that I'm going to put a layer of the fresh compost as a mulch to help keep the weeds at bay and to help hold in the moisture. And this tree should be happy. So let's get that mulch on next. There we are. Had a bit of a tidy up, and I've drawn the bits of turf that I'd originally sliced off. I've drawn them back around to kind of square off that hole, and the turf is still underneath, so that's going to rot down and left the soil showing on the top. All that remains to be done is to get this lovely fresh compost on the top as a mulch. And really, a mulch serves a few purposes. It kind of holds in the moisture. Whoa, look at that. It encourages the worms, holds in the moisture. It can actually warm up the soil as well. Creates a kind of a pocket of warm soil underneath. As it decomposes, it generates heat. It releases some nutrients into the soil gradually. Let's not bury that label. Let's just get that up there. That's it. Holds in the moisture, adds some nutrients, warms it up, and also it'll keep some of the weeds at bay as well. So all in all, that all helps this young tree to establish well. That looks just the job. We'll see you in a month or two, young tree, and maybe in a year or two we'll have some fruit. I just need to get rid of those stones and we'll be done. So that's how we plant a young fruit tree.